Hello, and welcome to the Graphic Medicine Podcast Monthly Wrap-Up. We are a podcast dedicated to discussing comics and how they interact with the issues of health, illness, disability, and caregiving. I am your co-host, Alex Thomas.
And I am your co-host, MK Surwick. So what's new? What's good, Alex?
Not much. I think the holidays were fun with the kids. There was one thing that I kind of accidentally got myself a gift because my son, I just took over his gift basically, but my son for months, even for his birthday, was asking to have access to Roblox, which is like this online game that I've heard nothing but bad things about from parents and parent groups. And so and he has a lot of friends who play this game, but it's like this online kind of like kind of Minecrafty game where you kind of build, you can create your own kind of games and interactions and things like that. But it seems like it's a place where there can be a lot of negative things that can come out of it. And so I've been desperately trying to find other things besides Roblox that he could play that he'll be equally satisfied with. So one of the ones that I thought he'd love was I got this retro game system called a Retroid, and basically it's like you can download. I mean, well, it's encouraged that you find legally available copies of old school games, and you can download them and put them on this little handheld device. And so that, but it's insane because like technology the way it is now, you're literally able to download every game that's ever existed on this thing, essentially. And so I did that, and he was really excited. But then after a couple of days, he was like, "All right." And then I was like, "Actually, this is really cool." So now I'm just playing it all the time, and it's like if I was a kid and could have imagined that as an adult I'd have every game that I could have ever wanted in my pocket.
Yeah, you can take anywhere you go,
It's
anywhere you
amazing.
go.
It's
That
amazing.
is
So,
amazing.
but it is fun. I mean, we do like we'll play together, or we'll go and look for games, online together. But it's a pretty cool device, and that's been how I've been occupying a lot of my free time.
Nice.
Uh, Otherwise, I'm pretty burnt out with being a doctor already, and it's kind of we're just into January, so that's it's not good. But things have gotten a lot worse with just like insurance coverage and things like that with for patients. And it's just kind of it's tough because in a private practice I'm not like I don't have like a big infrastructure of like a billing department that can like push back against like a giant insurance company. So it's just kind of me and my one staff member who knows how to navigate the system, which is constantly changing and constantly like making it difficult for patients to get what they're owed, honestly. And that's the part of it that's really frustrating. So anyway, that's been bad, and I think it's gotten. I mean, at least in my experience, I feel like it's gotten worse in the past year. And so I think there's that. I mean, it's funny. I have a friend who, come in medicine. It's like I have such a narrow focus of like what jobs people can have outside of medicine, just because like I had my blinders on for so long, in my adult life. So I had a good friend of mine who, for years I never really understood exactly what his job was, but he was like, I work in computers, IT, I'm working in machine learning. I'm like, I don't know what that means. But then, in the past few years, he was like, yeah, I work for this health insurance company, and I know I work on machine learning and AI. And I was like, why would you, that's weird. Now I realize that he was helping develop the AI that basically rejects 90% of claims that are submitted to them. He's since quit that company because he was so kind of disenchanted with like that job. But I feel like it's been worse, I think, since that maybe has been enacted. That's what it feels like to me. But because I can't believe that like there's a human being making some of the decisions that I come across with some of my patients. So it's very frustrating. But anyway, that's so I take solace in that technology by playing retro technology. That's my solution
I
to
love
maintain
that.
some sanity. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And what about the flu? Are you seeing a lot of uptick of
Oh,
respiratory
yes.
illnesses right now?
Yeah, it's been bad. I think that this year flu has been really the main thing that's been affecting everyone. Both my patients and my kids. Like I think my kids, my son's class, the last day before winter break, literally that day, 7 kids went home sick with the flu that day. It's like, oh my God. Um, so yeah, it's been bad. I think, the other thing that's really interesting is that RSV has been really low because now is this new RSV vaccine that's been around for a couple of years. So it's like we're seeing kind of like the beneficial effects of vaccines in real time, and but we're all not really, I feel like, giving enough props to that happening. um
That's
so yeah,
interesting.
so it's interesting, and I think that every time there's a bad flu year, it's like I always have to talk to patients about like why the flu shot is still worth doing, because they'll say, well, it didn't work then. It's like, did work. It could have been worse for you if you didn't have the vaccine, and
Yeah.
a lot of people aren't getting vaccinated. So yeah, vaccinations these days are an uphill battle, but you take you take the wins you can when you're able to. That's been my philosophy so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, what's been new with you?
Well, the flu.
Oh no.
I don't know which one it is or what it is, but my wife's been sick for almost a month with a bad cough that
Oh
just
no.
is. So finally, we're addressing it a little more aggressively, and we thought that I was this like great immunity machine, and then it turned out in the last week I just went down, and I think
Oh.
I'm either really well medicated today or on the upswing, because I'm better than I was yesterday at this time. So,
Oh
um,
no. So how long have you been sick?
just about 3 or 4 days.
Okay. Okay.
But I got my flu shots, and
Yeah.
I'm right in that age group where I think we can benefit from it most. I think so. Yeah, I feel like I hope that helped. But yeah, I mean, I definitely had a fever yesterday, but today I'm feeling better. So
Oh well, I'm glad you're able to join us even. That's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
thanks. I mean, yeah, it's and did you were you both tested? Do you know for sure it's like influenza or
Well, no, I don't. We both did that. We went into Walgreens and got that test. It has all three, the COVID A
yeah.
and B, and then my wife went to her doctor, and her doctor also did RSV. What else? Redid all the ones we did, and just did a whole like right there in front of us, just like with the little vials like you would do at
Yeah.
home. She was great. We love our doctor, and everything came back negative. So we're just still it's just this persistent cough and
Yeah.
yeah. So.
I'd still assume flu. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Of some, so my whole TikTok feed right now is the flu. It's like
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
that and then that hockey show. That's my whole TikTok feed. And these flu is just like, oh, it's an enterovirus. Oh, it's, this kind of virus, whatever. The most valuable thing was that I learned from it is put honey in your tea, which I never had really done before,
Yeah.
and alternating Advil and Tylenol. Not that we're giving any
Yeah.
medical advice. It's not the appropriate thing we do on this podcast, but that whole thing is so anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a rough season. I think my family was struck with two different GI illnesses like earlier in the fall, which is like not typical for that time of year, but yeah, it's been a weird year with viral stuff. Thankfully,
Yeah.
I haven't seen like a ton of COVID, but
Oh, good.
in my little world I haven't, but who knows?
Good. Good. But artistically, so something, or two other things that are of interest. One is I met with a few nursing colleagues the other day who are very interested in pursuing this idea of graphic nursing.
Hmm.
And, I've been talking a lot and have dipped in a few things here and there. But about like, I've spent 15 years working at a medical school and in medical environments, but I really would and the resistance has been much stronger from nursing in terms of bringing in comics, and I have all kinds of thoughts about why that is and
Huh.
understanding. But so I've got two colleagues. One is our graphic medicine liaison to nursing, Esther Saltzman, and she has great experience doing a certain kind of teaching of graphic medicine to nursing students from and medical students from an artistic perspective, from through an art school in Memphis and in a few other in California. And then I'm also working with Caitlin Nye, who's co-authored a book chapter for the anthology that Brian Callender is working on of kind of like graphic medicine interprofessionally. And so and my colleague is an expert in nursing pedagogy and the curriculum and all of because the biggest excuse you hear from nurses of why you can't integrate comics is because there's no room for it in the curriculum, which I just
Mm,
think is interesting. Is I've never heard that from medicine. Like
yeah.
it's just always been figured out how, and so I think it's really about figuring out how it already does serve it. And so we're looking at, and the three of us got together the other day and just had such a productive meeting with all kinds of exciting ideas of ways that we can do it. And I'm feeling particularly moved to move forward with this more robustly right now because of the importance of combating misinformation and that nurses are often on the front line. And
Yeah.
as my colleague said to me, like no one changes their behavior by being scolded or by being bombarded with facts. And so, how can we think about graphic medicine educational interventions in a way that is engaging and useful to nurses? And, like one of the things we talked about is there are nurses who are anti vax, right? Or who are
Right. Yeah.
uncomfortable getting the COVID vaccine. And how do you have communication with people that moves them in the direction of kind of supporting the science and allaying the fears, I guess, is kind of our
Yeah.
goal. And providing the best care possible to their patients.
Yeah, I mean that's so interesting about, that there's a reluctance of introducing comics, in especially in nurse education, because in our experience in terms of creating like educational comics, nurses have been the biggest champions of like introducing that stuff. So like, our Iggy comic, its big publication was in the Journal of School Nursing,
Yeah.
based on a study that a NP grad student, basically was the lead, researcher on. And when I first started making comics during my fellowship, it was a nurse practitioner, Kathleen Shanovich, who was the one that was really like, you should start using this in clinic, and help give me the infrastructure, because her job outside of like clinical, like seeing patients, was also doing all of the asthma education. So like in a lot of these hospital settings, the education is, conducted by like nurses or NPs rather than the physician. So yeah, I could see. I mean, that's interesting. I wonder why there's kind of that reluctance at that stage, but then the implementation, I feel like, has been really helpful with nurses in the work we do.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, and that really kind of aligns with my experience. Is that so? The resistance is from like on a sort of like a higher level of
Yeah.
I have a lot of theories about why, but kind of like the people who are and it's more like we need a more stealth approach. Exactly what you're saying. Get in with the people on who are doing the work on the front lines, and my experience has been when I give a lecture. The nursing students are sort of interested. They want to use it for reflection, which is, they want to reflect on their experiences. They're learning how to deal with patients, and I get that. But the professors, once they see a lecture on graphic medicine, are like, oh my God, I can think of 50 ways I can apply this with my
Yeah.
students and it's going to help. And so that's just it. It's almost like, like you say, you had Iggy and they saw the potential. Once they see the books we're working with, but my biggest theory about the resistance is it's always couched as there's no time in the curriculum, but we know that's silly because it can be
Yeah.
easily integrated. The real thing is, I think medicine had open arms to graphic medicine because medicine already is a respected profession. Medicine is
Mhm.
like, yeah, let's try and do things in an innovative way. And where nursing is working hard to get people to even understand the value of, I mean, everybody's like, oh yeah, the nurses, they're there all the time, but don't really realize that it's not just being a handmaid or a waitress at the bedside, right?
Right. Yeah.
That there's lots of other aspects of nursing work, and even like I actually made a comic for the Woodhull study, which was something that was done back in the early 90s and then repeated in the 2010s, which was looking at the news reports about health related issues.
Hmm.
And the statistics in which nurses are quoted about things that are even the realm of nursing, like wound treatment and things, is so pathetically low. Like 1% of the
Wow.
stories will quote a nurse, that they're going to look for a doctor as the authority, right? And
Yeah.
so the thought was in the follow-up study is that, well, in the 10 years since the first time that this study was done, it must have gotten better, right? It
Hmm.
hadn't.
Hmm.
It hadn't improved. And so a lot of it is like, why do we not? Because maybe people don't understand the work of nurses, and all of this is to say that I think coming at like them at nurses with a comic just in the abstract and not the specific ways it can help them and what that comic looks like is like, oh my God, no, we are working so hard for respect here. Please don't bring that, stuff
Yeah.
that's gonna perhaps, again, tying into the stigma around the comics as being, funny or like,
Hmm.
silly. All right. And so again, once people see the work and they know what it's about, but this group in kind of looking at graphic nursing is going to really look at those barriers, how to overcome them, how to kind of like come in more stealthy with projects that can be, and that does not to say it doesn't exist. There's some great projects out there, but just how
Yeah.
do we get a critical group of people together to kind of just do the work we're doing with graphic medicine, more specifically to nursing.
That's amazing. I mean, that's wow. That sounds like a great area of focus. And I really didn't realize that there's that kind of disconnect there at the education level. So that seems like a huge area for graphic medicine to kind of exert some influence, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
great. That's great. Okay, well, without further ado, let's get to today's episode. So today we're going to chat with Georgia Weber. She's a comic artist, educator, and now a podcast host. So really excited to talk to her about her new podcast. But first, we're going to have some graphic medicine news.
Boop, 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 boop. I feel
We
like we
got
need a
we
little,
got it. We got to get a song. I
get a
keep
little
forgetting.
boop, boop, boop. Yeah. Um, yeah, so I kind of cover the news from the graphic medicine website. I just kind of want to highlight the fact that we have officially wrapped up the monthly scheduled drawing togethers. Our last one was about a week ago, and now in some, we have 72 episodes of the podcast that are all archived on, or sorry, the podcast, 72 episodes of the weekly gathering of drawing together. Well, initially weekly and then monthly, all archived on the website. So they're a great resource if you're looking for like a warm up exercise for a class, or you're just kind of like sitting around struggling with something and just start poking around and you probably find an exercise to just kind of engage drawing as a way of thinking about different things. And we'd been doing that for 6 years. We started up during COVID and we felt like it was a time to kind of, and also the other cool thing is, and I talk about this on the post on the website, there's tons of other like people gathering. We don't want to like shut down that community, but there's a tons of other outlets already doing this work, and so we kind of referred out to that. So that's that. As far as the GMIC awards, we're it's award season. The Oscars, the Golden Globes, the GMIC awards have just opened up nominations, and those are going to be closing on the 31st of January. So the entire month of January is available. Go to the website for lots more details on that. In the reviews, we have Kevin Wolf is just, I say this every episode, but just doing a great job. More reviews every week. And most recently are two really interesting ones. One is a book called Bionic by Corinne Shadme. And it's a fiction, interesting body thing that looks really interesting. And then there was another one that he just posted yesterday called Playing in a Dream. And it's a bilingual Chinese-English comic book that's written and drawn by someone named Sen, S-E-N. And if you look at the post, the review on the website, it includes on the inside cover, I think, a cassette that sort of recesses into the cover of the book for you to listen to while you read this dual language comic. And
What?
yeah, I know it's crazy. And the reviewer put a ton of beautiful images in the review, so it's just visually striking. It's a very interesting book that just got reviewed on the site. So, and then
Do we know
lastly,
what's on the cassette? Is it like music or
I don't know.
audio? Oh my
I
gosh,
haven't,
that's
yeah, I
amazing.
haven't done a
I
deep
got to check
dive
it
into
out.
the review, but because I was
Wow.
just kind of skimming it to put it in our newsletter this
Yeah.
week, and I was like, okay, this looks really interesting. But yeah, and last thing is our newsletter. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter through the website, it's really robust. There's just so much happening, and it's been a great, very visually pleasing way to gather that. And one thing is that shout out to AD Lewis, who has a group on Instagram where whenever he comes across a graphic medicine or even possible graphic medicine in his feed, just adds it to this group. And I really appreciate that because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't come across my feed. We all have different algorithms, and his is bringing in some great stuff. So I really appreciate that, flagging that up. So we can include it in our newsletter so you can just see what's happening out in the area.
Great. From the GMIC board, we have a couple things. So, just as a reminder, the Graphic Medicine Conference this year is going to be in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins University, July 23rd to 25th. The theme, once again, is Drawing Perspectives, Health Graphic Narratives Under Pressure. And we're all feeling it, obviously, these days. And I think by now the submission window is closed. So, hopefully, you got those in. And either way, we hope to see you at the conference. It should be great. Um, Two other things I just wanted to bring up. First off, one other GMIC project that we've been working on for the past few years, the Frontline Comics project. We officially completed the project essentially. So if you recall, the Frontline Comics project was something that we started post COVID, and it was a project that would pair cartoonists, comic artists with frontline workers who had experiences that they wanted to share from working through the COVID pandemic. And so we had two rounds of this where we created I think something like 15 or so comics. The first round was, kind of in the first few years of COVID, and a lot of it was based on kind of the initial experiences of what healthcare workers and those on the front lines were going through. The second round had kind of a few years later, recontextualizing some of the things in some of the positive and negative stuff that happened, in the years after COVID. And then more importantly, there was a lot of international stories that we included in the second round. And so we, in the past few months, have completed the final few comics that we were working on. And so We're happy to share all of them. We've been sharing them all obviously in real time as well. But if you want to check them out, it's at www.frontlinecomicsproject.org. I'll include a link right now. And yes, and so one of the things from that project that we found as a really successful way of creating these collaborations was to have this facilitator work with the storyteller and the artist to create kind of a story as a triad. And so that's kind of this model that we found was really useful in one, having maybe a cartoonist who is maybe not well versed in creating like a medically related content feel comfortable to do that. Also, having a storyteller who maybe has never written a story before, drawn a comic, or written a comic before, feel comfortable to do that. So that model we felt like was really useful. And so we're excited to talk about the next project that we're working on, and that's comics from the front lines of abortion care. So this is a project that we are just starting now, and like I said, it's a similar type of format with a facilitator, artist, storyteller. In this project, the storytellers are those working on the front lines of abortion care. So physicians, healthcare workers, abortion providers that are all affected by the Dobbs decision and the Supreme Court decision in the U.S. of the reversal of Roe versus Wade. And so there's a lot of amazing, very powerful, eye-opening stories that we've spent the past year gathering from these various storytellers. And so now we're at the stage of having facilitators join the project and matching artists and these storytellers together to start creating these stories. So we hope to have that completed in the months ahead, and we'll be sharing them as well as they come up. But we're really excited about this project, and I think there's a lot that you're not hearing from those most affected by this. And so we found, or we're hoping that the medium of comics is a way to do that safely, anonymously, but also in a way that can, reach a lot of people and hopefully inform those who are aware of what's going on out there.
Fantastic, fantastic. I'm really excited about seeing that work. Welcome to the Graphic Medicine Podcast, Georgia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So, I want to introduce our guest. Georgia Weber is a comics artist, editor, facilitator, and podcaster living in Newfoundland. Is that right?
That is right, yeah.
And working at the intersection of health and art, making music, comics, and facilitating courses. Georgia is known for the graphic memoir Dumb, Living Without a Voice, which came out in 2018. And Georgia also collaborated with Vivian Chong on Dancing After 10, which came out in 2020. Georgia is currently hosting the Drawing Health podcast, and that's what we're here to discuss today. So, Georgia, congratulations on launching the podcast. And can you tell us a little bit about the origin and the format?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, thank you for the congratulations. You obviously did it before me, so I'm definitely, following in the footsteps of the work you've done here. Um, I first started teaching the class called Drawing Health in 2020, and it was actually inspired by the Friday Night Comics classes that actually started with The Believer and then Saw took over. I was invited to teach a class, and I was trying to figure out what I could possibly teach that would be of interest and that would feel like a contribution, like a help for the world and the situation that we were in. And that was also me coming off of the very intense work period I had for creating with Vivian her memoir, Dancing After 10. So I also needed it to be like suitable for me, gentle and accessible, and something that actually would help me connect to myself, where there was so much fear just pulling me out into the world. It was full lockdowns. It was the beginning. We didn't know what was going on. And the response to that class, where I basically was just taking my health knowledge, the experiences I've had learning different practices, learning about trauma, learning about the nervous system, and applying it to a creative space, which is something I don't actually see happening very often. The response I had from other people when I did this thing that was actually just really good for me was so positive and had so much heart to it. Like it was very clearly touching them that I thought, well, I can keep doing this and that's going to help. The world was crazy. The world still is crazy. And we all need those pockets of time that are just for us and ways to remind us like how to get back into our own selves and particularly how to be attuning and attentive to our own bodies. But at the beginning, like this is still 2020, I started teaching this class every Saturday to keep making that offering available for people. And right away thought, if I could record these practices, people could listen on their own time. They could be listening and doing other things. They could be listening to one they really enjoy, like every day, over and over again. And what kind of positive impact I could have would be so great. So I wanted to do it then, but I couldn't. And for many years, I just kept like trying to wrap my head around it. And finally, actually partnering with SAW, who have started to offer my drawing health course, the class every Saturday. Tom at SAW was just constantly encouraging me to start the podcast that I had mentioned to him I wanted to do, and eventually was like, you know what, we'll do it with you. Let's make this happen. So it's this dream that started many years ago, and then it was the support of Tom and the other employees at SAW who actually made it possible.
That's great. So tell us a little bit more about the format. So you kind of alternate between like an interview style versus kind of more what the class was like.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of the format part of that question. Um, yeah, because in the class there is more conversation, there's more sharing, like from the people in the room, the people in the Zoom with me, and we end up kind of bouncing things back and forth. But there's also a section that's an audio practice where I'm just speaking and guiding people through, usually a combination of like a meditative exploration, and then also how to bring that into your drawing and how to go back and forth between the two. um, but that's not all the podcast is. Like you mentioned, there are also interviews. And that's because talking about not just health, but how health intersects with comics is so interesting to me. And everybody approaches it differently. So if you're someone who's interested in improving your relationship to your health, every other week you have a practice that I have taught in the class before. And it's something you can pop in whenever you like, whenever you want like a 20-minute private time with yourself to create or just to explore your inner world, let's say. But every other week, there's also the inspiration of listening to an incredible graphic medicine cartoonist talk about their work, their practice, how they relate to their health, how they take care of themselves. I'm also occasionally speaking to healthcare workers because not everyone who makes graphic medicine comics actually works in healthcare, but also not everyone who works in healthcare makes graphic medicine. And yet there are so many people with like contributions to make and things to say, especially because I want the podcast to be a practical resource more than anything. It's not simply for listening to passively, it's actually for listening to and then putting into use. And I'm really excited to see how people actually experience things, not just how they hear them.
That's
That's
great. Yeah,
wonderful.
I love that. Yeah, I mean the practical use is such a good question that I think is a lot of times not talked about enough. So that's great. Um,
Yeah.
so can you tell us a little bit about like specifically your graphic medicine origin story? So like for example, for those who don't know, what led you to be interested in creating comics that were related to health?
It was my own story that needed telling. Um, my fears about starting to make comics came from a really deep love of what they could do. And I could not get over those fears. I could not like push through them or find my way to creating anything until I realized the story I'm living right now, if I don't tell it, sorry, my dog was just barking. Can you hear that when he barks? Oh, good.
No?
Okay, then I'll just keep talking. He's a wonderful dog. I'll introduce you later if he comes back in the room. But anyway, um, yeah, I realized that the story of my life, the story I'm living as I go through this really intense health experience that I turned into the book Dumb, Living Without a Voice, where I wasn't able to speak for many months. I was in a terrible amount of pain. I was not getting support or education from my healthcare practitioners. And it was so full of interesting and challenging experiences. But if I didn't tell that story, then nobody else would. There was no one better suited to tell my health story than I was. And that's what got me over that fear and into creation.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean I think okay, sorry, go ahead, MK.
No, no, I was just gonna say like that is so true. Like I say that so often is like the only one who can tell this story is you, and no one can tell this story better than you can. And so I love that perspective. So tell us how have you decided whom to interview?
Oh my goodness. Well, I've now been how do I even say this? I've been a part in, even though it feels like I'm such a small part, I've been a part of the graphic medicine community for, I guess, a decade or two now. Um, so there are just so many names that I already have like at the ready. People I really wanted to talk to right away. I felt like if I started talking to anyone about graphic medicine, it would be the best to start with those people who in the graphic medicine world might be really well known, and then beyond the graphic medicine world might be totally unknown. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to make sure I get those people checked off immediately. And happily, a lot of them are people I do know in some capacity. So there's also a level of ease that I can talk to my friends for my first interviews, and I can talk to people who at least I'm familiar with, if not people I've actually like got an established relationship to. I get to reach out to people who are like, fantastic creators. I was going to say big stars, and then I was like, oh, I sound like such a nerd. But my big stars of graphic medicine, I also get to reach out to just to say, I would love to talk to you if that would ever be possible. And then find actually that they're more than willing, and in fact, they already know about what I'm doing because our community is pretty small, although it seems to be growing like crazy. Um, so it's yeah, I mean the wish list of people kind of comes very easily to me, and then I'm also really looking for people to suggest who they want me to talk to so that I can expand my knowledge of the graphic medicine community through this project.
Yeah, and you're this is a weekly podcast, correct?
It is weekly, yeah. Am I
That's
crazy?
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
weekly.
I mean, we could not do that. That's amazing. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, that's great. But and then I guess this is a good time to plug that. So where can people get in contact with you if they do have suggestions and want to communicate with you about the podcast?
Yeah, great question. I mean, the easiest place to find us is on Instagram because that's the one social media that I actually kind of use regularly. I'm, trying to learn some others just to make sure that we are where people are and they can find it in whatever way is accessible to them. But there's also the SAW website, and we have a page that's actually got its own little URL now, and just go to drawinghealth.com. If you sign up for the newsletter, like the email version of my social media, wow, what am I saying? If you sign up for the newsletter, I didn't have to explain what that is. Um, like, why do I feel like I have to tell you what a newsletter is? Um, if you sign up for the newsletter, you can literally just hit reply to any email that is sent and it'll get to me. But literally commenting on social media, or like the very best way, my very favorite way would be if you wrote a review. Like if someone was listening on Apple Podcasts and they wrote a review of the show saying, I'd love to see an interview with this person. That would be fantastic because reviews really matter, it turns out. And I'm delighted that that would mean I get more contact with listeners and I get to hear from people that I don't even know exist until they write me a review and I get to say, hey. So I encourage all of those. Anything is fine. And if there's something people are looking for as a way to contact the show and they don't have that yet, like I also want to hear about that because I'll make it. If you need it, I'll make it for you.
That's great. Yeah, it's funny. I think my social media ends at Instagram. Every once in a while, my wife will send me a TikTok and I'll click on it and be completely confused in terms of what
It's
I'm
disorienting.
looking at,
It's
and
very
something pops
disorienting.
up that I'm not supposed to be looking at. I'm so confused by that. So yeah, I get to go on TikTok.
Yeah, I do
Um,
feel like I'm fully aware that I am a millennial and not Gen Z by how uncomfortable new social media makes me.
yeah,
That
I know.
is
It's
my
like I
like grandma mode where I'm like, what's that again? How do you use it? Like,
exactly, and it's like, oh, this is how like my. I mean, the funniest example I could think of is when my mom for, sent me her first text when she got a
the
phone that was able to
first.
text. And her first text, she sent me like a full letter and
Yep.
signed it.
That's the classic. Yeah.
It's like, "Dear Alex, how are you?" And it was like a paragraph. I was like, and I was, "Mom, I'm here." And then she just closed her phone. And I was like, "Okay, so
Yeah.
we're getting there."
I know, and I
Yeah.
feel like the version of that might be with the like facility people might send each other like a short video message, or like the way that my sister uses Snapchat as a texting service now, and all the photos are the most random thing and they have their own visual language. I'm like, I
Yes.
couldn't even like if I put myself in that space, I will embarrass myself immediately.
Another one I really don't understand that people do is sending voice notes. I don't know if you either you do
That's my
that.
favorite thing. Yes,
I
that's the technology that as soon as it came in, I was was like, this is my jam. I am so here for this.
Yeah, I don't see. I truly, I don't like talking on the phone either. Like, I'm very awkward on the phone. I like texting much better or
Mhm.
talking in person. But a voice note sounds like it's kind of a bridge in between that. But yeah, I don't know. That's one that I haven't embraced yet, but I probably should.
Now, is that like, do you mean that like on any app? Like, because I get voice notes, like Monica Lalonda wonderfully sends me voice notes on WhatsApp. And I kind of love it because it's like, I love her
Yeah.
voice. So it's like you get the information, but you get to hear him talk too. So is that what you
So
mean?
yeah, I mean that's my definition of it. I don't know if that's that's what I'm thinking. But
Yeah.
so then, if you get one, do you feel pressured to reply immediately, or is that something you just kind of you hang on to? That's the part
I
I don't
feel like
get.
it's I feel like it's entirely up to you based on how
Yeah,
you want to run your life, right? Because there are people who feel pressure to respond to a text as soon as it arrives. And I
Right.
yeah,
had to very deliberately tell myself, like, I'm not going to respond to this right away, nor am I going to let it linger for months or weeks
right,
even. Like I'm days I'm already like, oh, I really just should take care of that. Like I want to respond. And if you catch me at a good time, sure, I'll write back immediately or I'll send a voice note back immediately. But
yeah.
I don't think that you have to like abide any rule. You just let people know this is how I use the thing. And then it's shaped to you.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I'm gonna start getting into voice notes. I feel like I'm built for that.
It was not my intention with today's interview,
No,
but
no,
I'm
this is
happy
a good
to.
tangent I we had to take. All right, let's get back on track. Um, so first up, yeah, the episodes so far that have been released have been great. And I'm
Thank
like
you.
excited that they're just coming out. It's great. So everyone tune in because they're coming out in real time. So it's
I
awesome.
know.
Um, so I had a question actually from your first conversation with Tom Hart, and he was actually our guest for our first episode too, I think. So that's kind of
What?
interesting, right? I think he was episode one. So
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome. He's great to talk to, and that conversation you had was fantastic, and you really talk about your origin story really completely
I
there. So I would
do.
refer
Yeah.
everyone to that conversation as
Yeah.
well. There was something you said in that conversation that really resonated with me that I wanted to ask you about.
Mhm.
If you don't mind, could I actually read what you said? Is that
Oh,
okay?
please. Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
So you were talking about kind of I think like when a realization you had when you first kind of decided to draw dumb, and you said that your realization was that you realize that you don't care about doing something for the sake of doing it, and you only do things in the drive and desire to communicate and connect with someone. And it's not a generalized connection, but there's a message, there's a purpose, and there's something that I'm trying to figure out. There's something I'm trying to say. I feel that way a lot about kind of the creative work I do. And one of my questions was, one, do you still feel that way, or is that something that kind of was that is still something that you hold as something as a motivator, or has it changed at all since in the time that you've made your work?
You know, I am still pretty much the same.
Hmm.
Um, I have the skills to make a comic about anything.
Yeah.
Why don't I make a comic about anything? Well, I still want the meaning. I'm still really driven by the meaning first. And what's happened over time, because being so driven by the meaning, I made the mistake that I think a lot of people do. But I had a maybe slightly unusual experience in that my body responded so violently and so quickly to this mistake. But I drove myself beyond the enjoyment of the doing to tell the story. So I actually really didn't enjoy making comics much at all for the first several years. I really loved having done it, and you'll hear writers talk about this sometimes. I love having written, but I don't like writing. And I'm like, yeah, I loved having made a comic and having something to share with people. I didn't actually enjoy anything as I was making it. It was a slog to feel all that fear and so much shame and self-judgment that was so present in my life in general. And now I was being very vulnerable in like telling my story and also drawing for the first time in many years because I don't know if I did talk about this in my episode interview with Tom Hart, but actually as a child I was the kid who wouldn't stop drawing. Like I was drawing all day every day because it was my comfort. And then as soon as it became something other people saw, it was judged. And I actually stopped drawing. I was just like, oh, that's not why I do this. No thanks. People are giving me opinions. It doesn't feel good. I'm gone. And that was a mistake too, but the mistake of a young child's brain. Like I didn't know there were other options. So when I was making Dumb, I was also pushing myself through my own discomfort and the self-judgment and criticism that like I really don't know how to draw anymore, and I really am having to show people that I don't know how to draw because I need to tell this story so badly. And I just like couldn't keep up. The content of my experience, I don't know if either of you or any of the listeners have had a very life-changing health experience, but if it changes every aspect of your life, you are noticing the novelty of every aspect of your life constantly all day long. And no one else is there with you experiencing every second of that the way you are. So I was like, oh my God, no one who I'm even speaking, I mean, speaking to in quotations, because it was always writing or texting, none of the people in my life actually would understand how much information I was processing every single day because I couldn't do it in a way that was familiar. It was all new all the time. Um, so I couldn't keep up to communicate all of that. If I was going to go really slow with the drawings, I had to just get them out as quickly as I could. And I even got compliments from people of like, oh, I really like this, simplified style you've gone with. And I was like, I didn't actually have a choice. It just sort of had to come out that way. And even like, yeah, how I chose to draw certain things, I didn't feel like it was a choice because it was all me figuring things out and it was just the best I could do at that moment. But that's the thing I communicate to people quite often when they're making art for the first time, when they're making their own comics, is I'll say, you couldn't possibly know how much of you is coming out right now because you feel like everything you do is bad because you're thinking it should look this way and then it comes out of you looking a different way. And you yourself will never be able to identify how clearly this is your work because to you it's not good enough, but to us, we're getting to know you. And even as I get, smoother at drawing or I try different things or I take different risks, it still always looks like me. And that is present from the beginning, whether or not I would consider myself to have a style. My hand does. My unconscious self, it's there.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that answers your question now. I just kind of
No, it does. I guess
went off
the
on
other
it.
question I have though is how important was it for you to connect not necessarily with people in your world but people who didn't know you about that work? I mean, was it something where you felt a motivation that your experience and that the work you were doing was meant to connect with kind of others kind of further away from you?
Hmm. Well, yeah, and this is a good distinction actually to bring up that for me, and it won't be this way for other people necessarily, but for me, when I talk about having something to say, it is very much on a like human philosophical level. It's not that I'm thinking, how can I tell my friends this thing about me? Because I'm not, I mean, I've said this before, I'll probably never stop saying it. Even when I tell a story about myself, I don't think of it as being about myself. I think of myself and my story as a vehicle for people to consider and have experiences of and to like investigate on their own elements of being alive that my experience brought me to those elements. And because we're having different experiences, I want to share my experience to bring you there also. And it might be something familiar to you, or it might be a different facet of a way that you already think. But really, what the vehicle of my life was providing. Um, no, I'm going to try that sentence again. Really, what the story was about, that my life and my story was the vehicle to bring people to, was about voice. Voice in our world, voice as a physiological experience, as an auditory experience, as a metaphor, as a source of power, as a sense of self. Like, I was having those thoughts. I was constantly facing, oh my God, like I'm being quiet and I know I'm not making sound, but now I also experience my body as quiet. Like I'm missing a sensation. And when I did start to speak like a little bit again, because it was just short bursts, like 15 minutes a day for the first few weeks when I was actually just speaking again, every time I would start speaking, it was like a shocking experience to have vibration in my body because there was no vibration in my body up to that point. Vibration was only the sounds coming from elsewhere. And I haven't found anything that replicates the sense of vibration even in my body right now. Like I really feel it in my collarbones. I feel it in my sternum. I feel like the engagement of my belly with the fact that there's vibration up here and I have to do some work to make it happen. And of course, in my jaw and neck and all the places that you would more immediately think of. You guys can probably also hear today my voice is tired because the last couple days have been stressful. So there's been constriction. So there's been like projection that's caused some fatigue. And now here I am. And like I really notice it. Um, so anyway, those kinds of things that everyone is experiencing, but absolutely not thinking about. And I was like, I had the experience of thinking about it, of feeling it, of navigating it. And so if I share that with you, you'll be thinking about it. And I'm just trying to dive into something with other people. And it doesn't have to be that they know me or that it's applicable when they do come into contact with me. Like, I mean, my friends read the comics and that was great. But actually it didn't seem to reveal much in our relationship. It was more like I was just letting them know a little bit more about me on the inside.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I feel like the reason why this resonated with me a lot is that I feel the same motivation with a lot of the work I do, and for me as well, I feel strongly motivated by sharing the work I make with others, more so
Mm-hmm.
people I don't know rather than people I do know.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm not I don't really feel the need to, like, if I finish something, to show like my family or anything at all. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I feel like the motivation to like share it is what keeps me going. I also
Mm-hmm.
don't think I could like work on like 100-page graphic novel without sharing a panel. I think that
Yeah.
part of it, so I think there is a
Me too.
strong
Yeah.
motivator there, but also like I feel a little bit out of where like I don't necessarily want to share with anyone in my immediate circle.
Mm.
um and it sounds like to me
That
that
makes perfect sense.
yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't know, but I also feel like there is a place and a usefulness for making comics just for the sake of making them without feeling the need to share them as well.
Hmm. Oh, there's a place for everything.
Yeah,
And that's like, I mean, I do really enjoy that I get to interview so many different people who have totally different approaches to comics because I'd never want to be this person in people's lives, like on the podcast or teaching my class. And because I have that presence, I'm now becoming, even subconsciously to them, like the standard, like the way I do things is like the right way to do things. I would, if that was going to be a guaranteed result of what I'm doing, I don't think I'd do it because I don't want to be that for anybody. Actually, my whole teaching career and my whole approach to even just literally having conversations with people about their creativity in my life, like just chats and stuff, I'm always trying to acknowledge like everything you're experiencing is part of your unique and valid way of creating. And in art, we place such a high premium on creativity and such a high premium on originality. Why would you want to do it like someone else? Like you
right.
have built-in originality if you allow your quirks, if you accept the style that emerges when you start drawing your first drawings and you think they're terrible, but the quicker you accept them, the quicker you find your own unique place. And there's more value there than you realize. So I'm also always trying to say like, oh, this is just me. Like, it's there's
Yeah,
so many ways to do things. I love hearing from people about all the differences. And just because I love the way someone else does their work does not mean I'm going to try and change myself to be like that. I can
sure. Yeah,
appreciate it and I can still say, but I really know myself at this point. Like I have been doing this for 20 years. It's changing, but it's changing on my timeline or on my progression. Like when people who are really into working out, they'll say like you're not competing with anyone around you, you're competing with yourself. Now, this isn't competitive to me in any way, but it is very much like what's valuable is not how close to a faraway skill I get. It's actually how far I've come from where I started. That's
hmm
what's so cool to see. And even though Dumb it's such a rough book in so many ways, I did most of it straight to ink. Like I did not waste any time, waste in quotations. I did not waste any time with things like preparation. I was like just fighting for my life to get that image down and
yeah,
just splat it down there, and then if I can tweak it and fix it later I will, but sometimes you just can't. It just came out that way. I wasn't very skilled, I wasn't very comfortable, I wasn't very confident. That's the thing that I'll say with more of my chest. But you can actually see from the beginning the unconfident, scared style of drawing change through to the end. Because I did gain confidence in just accepting, okay, well, I've shown the world my worst drawings, and now I can only improve upon them based on looking at my previous work to where it is now. And there's no sense in looking at my work to where someone else is. I'm not them, and I'm not doing it that way. And that's only going to lead me to feel terrible about not being as good, or to place like a sort of false flip on that to be like, oh, well, I don't even like their work. I'm better because I just like my work better. Like, I don't need any of those conversations in my head. I'm so practiced at it. That's where I started. And I was very like confused by, why I just felt miserable when I was making art. Cause it's like, this is supposed to feel good. But there's this like
Yeah.
shame cycle criticism thing going on in my head, making me feel awful. So actually, when you talked about, what's your motivation? Is it still the meaning of something? Is it still that drive? It absolutely is. And because of my many like burnouts and crashes and all of the work that I've done to have a friendlier relationship, like an actually supportive and loving relationship with my creativity, because of that work, I'm still driven to tell the story I'm telling. I'm still saying the things I really need to say. And then once I know, because now I'm confident that I'll actually do it, once I know what it is that I'm going for, I'm like, okay, now how do we make this as pleasurable as possible to get there? And how do we make this
Yeah.
supported? Because I'm not going to push myself when it's not feeling good. So that's actually mostly what my teaching is for people these days, is teaching them not my way of doing things, but how to shift into their own version of how can this be as pleasurable as possible, and for them to have that support, because it's very hard to decide to change your whole attitude towards yourself while you're also like learning a new skill and being brave and putting your stuff out there. So I'm like, I'm the teacher I wish I had. I'm the teacher and the podcaster and the mentor that I would love to have in my early phases of life. I'm trying to pass on the things I've learned, and I don't just speak about them. They are the way I live, they are the way I am every day now, which hopefully makes it, you know, spacious enough that other people can kind of like take it as they want to and go their own way, discovering their unique way of being and their own needs and their own practices for support and care and art. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great way of thinking about it in terms of like aspiring to be the teacher that you wish you had. I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times we're inspired by good teachers, but I think the opposite is also true, where
Oh God,
you're like,
yes.
I don't want to be that person, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
especially like in all levels of like education, there's good and bad actors that inevitably will influence you in different ways, and so that's a good aspiration
Mm-hmm.
to kind of try to imagine who you'd want to see teaching you if
Mm-hmm.
you were able to do that. It
Yeah.
seems to me that a lot of what we're talking about definitely applies to the podcast as well, in terms of like wanting to connect but also transmit this information widely to others. So to me, it's a natural progression of that, but also the idea of like the vulnerability of kind of putting it out there. And the weekly schedule I'm so impressed by, but that's a commitment, So I mean,
Yeah.
those are all
Yeah.
things that I think it really, yeah, that it to me that's a very admirable thing to be doing, and I think it's going to help a lot of people and be a
Oh, I
source
hope so.
of that support and education. So I mean, it's great, and we're really
Thank
excited to see,
you.
what's coming out in the weeks ahead.
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh. Yes. I'm excited for you to see it too. Not too long from now, we have one Miss MK Serwick coming up. That was obviously one of the top of my list interviews to have. And we've also got Creota Wilberg, as of course you would expect, and praise be, she's amazing. But some other folks as well that are actually kind of newer to me, like Zareen Chowdhury and Sasha Mardu. She's amazing. I won't give too many away because we're just gonna keep going. I mean, the plan is weekly for the next year and then to see how it goes. So it's not gonna be ever something that you're like waiting too long to find out, what's coming down the line. I wanted it to be a container that you could actually build part of your life around, like a weekly, okay, I know on Sunday there's going to be a new episode. Maybe that'll be like the treat of my my podcast listening while I go for my weekly walk, or I don't know, I'll sit down and draw for 20 minutes while I listen to that practice because I know it's coming out this week. Like I've found consistency has been incredibly hard for me, but also the consistency of support, like having the knowledge that I am going to get something that will make me feel supported and feel better. And I know when it's happening, and I know I have to wait until that time. Those are all skills for how we can work with ourselves and our limitations as well. But I've been doing this for a long time. So I'm like, one of my skills now is that I can be more consistent and I can provide that for other people. Where for, the last decade or two, I really needed other people to provide consistency for me because I couldn't for the life of me. So it's meant to be a space like a soft listening experience, an inspiring one, and a supportive one that you can rely on every Sunday. And all the back recordings, you can listen to them whenever you want. Go back and re-listen. I would love that. And please review things for me. I'm gonna keep saying it because I need it so much. I want to know what you think.
Yeah, yeah, and it helps, like you
Absolutely.
say, it helps shape kind of what you're gonna do moving forward. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very permeable for people in that way.
that's
Um,
wonderful.
I I come up with the practices every Saturday based on how I feel and what I need on that day. And then when people are responding really well to a practice, I'm like, all right, we'll put that on the podcast. So it's already got this community involvement that's like moving it forward. And honestly, when the community gets involved, that actually takes some pressure off of me. That I don't have to come up with the next best idea. People
Absolutely.
just tell
Yeah.
me what they want me to do. And I'm like, absolutely, I could do that.
Yeah, yeah. So, kind of bridging a few of the things you're talking about, your own creative practice and the podcast. So, and you talked about kind of putting all these things that you're learning about creative practice into play. If there's anything you're interested in maybe talking about, and it's okay if you're not, is there anything you're working on creatively yourself aside from the podcast? I know this is a huge, heavy
Mhm.
lift taking this on this weekly podcast. So it's okay if there's, but I was just curious if there's something, even if it's just doodling in your sketchbook and enjoying that.
Ah, yeah. You know what? It's pretty wild. But having taken the significant time and like recommitting over and over again over years to prioritizing that I want to feel well, I want to feel inspired, but I also want to feel like I can trust myself in my artistic practice not to repeat the mistakes of the past where I pushed myself too hard, where I really burnt out and my body said no. Um, Having taken that time, I now find myself in a position where I'm like, my capacity to do things that I enjoy and to really enjoy them while I do them is so expanded. So, yes, the podcast is a big push. So I spent the last like 2 or 3 months basically only doing that because I'm doing it on an advanced schedule. So like I did the recordings for this season over the last 2 months. I did all the editing. I got it all like lined up and ready to go. And so I have all those episodes like sitting there and I can just focus on next season's episodes because I'm going by seasons of the year. So I've got like the winter episodes are done and I'm now going to work on the spring episodes. And then when those are done, I'll work on the summer episodes. And I have this like calendar of nature type of cycle that I'm following. Um, yes, it takes a lot of time and space, but I also get better at it as I go. And I've had one particular project that the seed of it started in 2021, so just a year after my last book. The seed of that project started in 2021, and it has been like marinating, growing, whatever you want to say. I'll just mix all the metaphors into now what is this epic, like it's probably about I'm going to say like an 800 to 1,000 page project that is actually, I'm wanting to break it up into 3 books because I really love the serial nature of like, a really good read and then you wait for the next one and you have a really good read. And then uh, the 3 books together is my sort of ideal if a publisher will please just let me do what I want. I know it's a risk, but I know what I'm doing. Um, because that story is one that is my first work of fiction. It's very different from everything I've done before. In tone, in style, it's very gay and very bloody. It's a werewolf story. It's about the world falling apart. It's about who decides what we call a monster and why. It's just so. it's this work, even though it's fiction, and you would think, my memoir should be the most me thing ever. But I'm like, no, this work of fiction is so much more me than anything I've done before. To the point that, especially now that I'm writing it, I'm like, there's no such thing as fiction. Like, we are all living in our own stories all the time. We are all believing our experiences so profoundly, even things like dreams, our dreams, which are not quote unquote real experiences, our bodies, our nervous systems, our psyches really believe them. So what's fiction? What are you talking about? That's not, it's all based on something that is essentially real. Like our stories do, or sorry, I mixed that up. Our brains function with story. Like story is reality. So writing fiction has been super fun. And I feel like it's a lot more revealing what I'm doing now, but it's also, it gives me more freedom because I don't have to say all of this is true. Because it's not all true in the sense that they're not like real things that happen to me, but they're like expressing truth in this really powerful way that, yes, my imagination is like playing it up, but that I've published one little prologue of it on my website, and I actually had to put like a monthly fee on that section of the website because like the only way that I can actually regularly publish it is if people are supporting me to do that. I have other things where I'm trying to make money, and this one is just more for me. But yeah, if people are really interested, like the plan is that every full moon I'm gonna have a little bit of it come out for the year of 2026 because I did mention werewolves and also periods. Um, so yeah, that's a place that people could follow along. It's just also kind of a place where I do what I can and I put process stuff up there, and that's my little that's my dark little heart that I'm putting into that thing. But there are also other things that I'm working on. I can't talk about them all right now without taking the whole hour of your episode to talk about all my shit. So
That is so exciting. I love everything about what you just said. Coming out
awesome.
with the full moon is that's genius. Wow, I love it.
It
And
just
that's a
feels
really
good.
interesting. I mean, I
Yeah.
really that there is no fiction is such an interesting point because I
Yeah.
agree. I feel like my most successful work, in terms of like a panel or something like that,
Mm,
is something where I can like pick specifically a personal experience that informed that,
mm,
that drawing, and I can like look at something where it's like, yeah, it's a work completely not autobiographical, but there's so much of like what your experiences and that you put into it that really animate, in my opinion, like the
mhm.
stuff that really is connecting with people because it just feels true.
Yes, and a lot of that is unconsciously transmitted. Like you don't have to try to make it feel real when you've felt it.
Yeah.
When you're feeling it as you're writing it, it reminds me of Stephen King has like a method for writing that I've just learned about recently, and I'm like, you are my dude. Let's go. I'm gonna start doing this too.
It's not
Where
it's not
he's like,
cocaine though, right?
it's not. No, it's
Okay, okay.
incredible though.
Uh-huh.
His method for writing is he's like, I do the same rhythm every day because that works for him. And honestly, I'm getting to a place with my own consistency where something I'm doing every day might be the best version for me. But the thing he said that really like landed for me was he was like, you're basically putting yourself in a trance. So you enter this world of writing and you block your distractions wherever you can, but you also give yourself something really supportive like music that you love. And you're just going to have I especially love this because I'm neurodivergent as fuck. And I just listen to the same things over and over again. So he's like, put on the same music that you love and put it on repeat. So you never have to stand up and turn on the next thing. And then just like emotionally or in your senses or in your mind, you just sink into the world of this story and just stay there. Just stay there for, he says like 30 minutes, couple hours, whatever feels good. But like it's getting into that state that you're then going to be able to communicate. You're going to transmit what it feels like. You're going to be able to experience it even just in your imagination because the state of the trance is like the openness to that reality, and I am so with it. I like need a playlist for working on this book. I started listening to the soundtracks for horror films because they're just like like I want it to be fun, I want it to be spooky, but also so many horror film soundtracks are actually like banging dance tracks. Like it's crazy. The Halloween theme song is like do 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 do
Oh
do
yeah.
do. Like it's incredible.
I mean, John Carpenter is an amazing musician. I think that's yeah, yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. And all that. I feel like I would be absolutely out of my mind to not mention this. All the things I'm talking about that I've learned for my own practice, for my own sense of well-being, like all of the big mistakes I've made with my massive burnouts and the ways I've abused my body, and this beautiful place that I've come to now, where I actually feel like, learning to be um, kinder to myself and my body has revealed much more of who I feel myself to truly be. And that brings with it a lot of peace. Is that there's not this feeling of like, who am I? What am I doing anymore? I'm like, no, I know. I know who I am because I love who I am. And it doesn't, one can't happen without the other. Um, but it's brought me another thing, which is the confidence to actually lead people through going actually deeper into that process for themselves with this new program that Saw and I are doing together. So it's going to start in March, and I've called it the Graphic Medicine Murmuration. I don't know if you know what a murmuration is, but a murmuration is a collection of starling birds. And if you just Google murmuration, you're going to see when you see these birds moving together and you just transpose, if you can, in your imagination, that's what this program is going to be like. It is so accurate. It is such a truth. And that makes it pretty unique. Like, I'm teaching from a position of we are going to investigate how to be, and we're going to publish some graphic medicine stories by the end. So it's like, I feel like the name of the game is transformation, but in the gentlest way possible. And we'll be actually properly like announcing that and signing people up in the next month or two. So if you guys are getting this out like even before February or March, then I would be so foolish not to say I'm teaching a whole 6-month publishing course at SAW. It is all about health. It is all about the application of how we are experiencing health like to the page and to the creative process. And it's also something that is probably going to change you quite a bit. um, but I'm just so honored and delighted to be able to usher people through that and witness it as it happens.
Wow, yeah, I just Googled murmuration. Now that's amazing. Now I know what you're talking about.
Isn't it? It's amazing.
If you
It's
go
like
to Ian's, yeah,
mesmerizing.
it is mesmerizing. Ian often will post. He's really obsessed with murmurations as well, and he will often post murmurations off the Brighton Pier, which is near where he
Mm,
lives. And
wow.
he just did one the other day, and I just sit and watch them. They're just amazing. Yeah.
It's like soothing and inspiring and like kind of just mind blowing. Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I like to make things, I like to put things into the world that when people see them, they're like, what do you do with that? I don't know what that is.
That's why you do
And then
it.
I have to
That's,
explain
yeah.
it. Yeah. Because I'm like, well, I'm trying to do
Okay.
something new, something I
So
need.
along those lines, I have kind of an oddball question that
Sure.
I don't anticipate asking this, but I feel like I ask this a lot with the guests we've had. Um, so you play music as well, right?
Yeah, that is, yeah. Well, I'll say more once you
Okay,
finish your
so I
question.
guess my
Yeah.
question is so that because I've noticed like there's a drum set behind your
Oh, it's
there,
true. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and yeah,
Drums on that
yeah.
side, and there's a violin right
There you go.
there.
Okay,
Yeah.
I feel like so many of the creators we've talked to are also musicians, and
Oh,
so
cool.
and one of the things, and I'm fascinated by this because they don't seem like they'd be related in terms of like
Mm,
drawing, comic making, which can be, like a solitary type of process, or can
mhm,
be collaborative. And similarly, music can be both. And so, do you feel like there's a relationship between like playing music and the other creative work you do? Do you feel like they're not related? How do you kind of
mhm.
think about them?
Yes, well, um, my relationship to music has always been terribly fraught and very deep and very painful. Because actually, even though I was drawing constantly as a kid, it was also like seen in me and named, and it felt very affirming that people were like, oh, she's such a musician. Like, this is like, whoa, talent, whoa. And then also terrible pressure, so much pressure that I could not understand how to feel it. Like, interestingly, so I've been like longing for my musical self for my whole life. And I've tried. Oh, I've tried so many different ways and so many different times to like just be scared and do it anyway and just I don't know, write something bad and play it anyway. And it hasn't ever brought about more ease. It has often been like a brief moment in time where some part of my psyche is just like, yeah, okay, let's do this now. And then the door just slams shut again. And it's filled with pain and shame and this longing of like, why can't I do this like thing that my heart has always been in? But as I've gone through my process with making comics, where I started in the same place, very shame filled, very self critical, and I hurt myself there because I did push. I did push through and people praised it. They didn't praise my pushing, but they praised what I did. So I had kind of a justification and a validation to keep pushing. But with music, especially because I've got this voice pain, I can't push because I can barely just talk in my life without expecting pain to come. And actually, that's a whole other thing, is I actually think that now I have found the reason for my voice pain and I have found things that I can do about it. And I'm only ready to do those things now because I've not carried forward all the shame I started with. Like I am softening, I am being more loving and gentle towards myself. I actually really like myself now. And that is making these pathways of both healing my voice and healing my relationship with music more possible and more delightful. So my relationship with music has been extremely rough, and it was similarly rough, but slightly less so when it came to comics. And then making comics, I think we're always going to be able to identify comics being similar to film in the very like the time-based medium of a visual story being told, but they're also very similar to music, which is a time-based medium, in that there's rhythm, there's dynamics, there's flow, there's a really different experience of time with comics where the reader is in control of how much time they spend somewhere. So it's much more of a negotiation. But also, when you start playing with other people, which is something I'm warming up to, I did it a few other times. It was very scary, it was very hard. But I want to get back to it because of that same feeling of like, we are just here negotiating this time. We're experiencing this time, and actually, the point in music, and I say the point because it feels like this is the most available value to you if you don't let your head take over, is that it's so pleasurable. And it's just I was carrying so much shame and so much self-criticism and truly like an insane amount of trauma from my childhood that I didn't even know what pleasure was. Like I've been teaching myself how to feel good and that it's safe to feel good for years now. And I'm only just at a place where I'm like, you know what? I can feel good. I feel safe doing it sometimes. It's still a, work in progress. And that means that when I sit down at my drum set, the first experience I'm having is, oh, this is nice. Instead of what it used to be, where I would sit at a drum set or I'd pick up my violin or I'd pick up a guitar, and the first like 10 minutes of just trying to do something very basic, just like strumming a chord or just like practicing some scales or something, I was weeping the whole time because it felt so scary, so threatening, so painful. So the interesting thing is that I feel so much confidence and so much peace with comics now. And I'm, going to go ahead and teach people continuously. I mean, I have been for years, but this new program, the Murmuration, is like a really deep way of teaching people. But if I'm trying to relate to those people on how afraid they might be or how much self-criticism they might be feeling around comics, I have to think of music to remind myself where I've come from in comics and also the ways in which I'm not done. Like I still carry that stuff. It's in this other realm. And it would be very easy for me to spend the rest of my life just being like, well, I'm good at comics, so I'm just going to focus on that. But I'm still challenging myself going into that space because look what I got when I challenged it the first time. I got myself, and there's more of me that I want to get. So I'm not turning away from that. And I'm going to end up invariably, because this is always how I do things, I'll be showing people that. Like, they'll be talking about their fears about comics, and I'll be like, yeah, I picked up my drum set, or I didn't pick up the set, obviously. I picked up my drumsticks the other day, and like, the day before it felt amazing, but today it was like I was just a tiny kid again, like terrified someone was going to judge me, and I was just like, I couldn't feel it, I couldn't get in the flow, and I'm devastated. Like, I'm in it, I'm in the shit with everybody. Even though I've learned enough that I feel very comfortable and confident, like helping people through their version of that. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
they're entwined
I
to
mean,
me.
that's really interesting. So I play drums as well.
Nice.
But
So
for
fun.
me, I'm not, and I have like no ego in this because I'm not a good drummer. I'm not a talented percussionist.
Yeah, you
And
don't have to be.
honestly, for me, that lack of like true kind of like chops, let's say,
Mm,
um
yeah.
made like collaboration necessary for it to be like not frustrating and or
Okay.
repetitive, so for example,
Yeah.
if I'm just playing by myself, it gets very boring very quickly because
Mhm.
I'm not good enough to really keep it super interesting. But like
Mhm.
when you're playing with a band, you're not expected to be that interesting because
Mm.
you're supporting. And so in that sense, I found it much more pleasurable to play with
Mhm.
others than, by myself. And so that to me took the pressure off almost, that I didn't have to
Mhm.
feel pressured to be, doing this kind of
Yeah.
fill or this complex rhythm where it's like, no, I'm just gonna enjoy everyone else's music and support them. And I love like the nonverbal communication that occurs when you're playing with
Mhm.
others. And so there's so much of it where it feels like it's itching like a scratch that nothing else itches, but then it also
Mhm.
feels very similar to like creating visual art, like in the same way that I
Yeah.
feel very like I feel in the same way that I want to share what like I'm drawing. I also like need to, I feel the urge to perform
Mhm.
in front of others rather than just like practice in a rehearsal room. And I think it's a similar,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it's that similar urge. And I think it's, yeah, but it's very interesting. I feel like there's definitely this interplay between those two creative um urges somehow. And MK and I have talked about
Yeah.
it a lot because MK is also like playing music and taking classes. So it's this thing that I feel like
Oh,
there's
that's
something there.
amazing.
I just don't know what it
There's
is
something
exactly, but
there. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
can sit here and I think and I feel like Alex, we need to do a whole episode just focused
I
with on
know.
this. That I can think
Yes.
of a whole bunch of cartoonists who also play music, right? Like
Yeah.
and I
Yes.
think and so
Absolutely.
and neurologically, so this is a whole nother
Yes.
weird tangent. I
No,
feel like there
I'm
is
with you.
some important connection between audio and comics. And that sounds
Mhm.
like it doesn't make sense, but the other thing a lot of comic artists do is listen to audiobooks and take in information effectively through their ears more so is maybe too much of a judgment, maybe I'm going too far, than through eyes or through words,
Mhm.
text on paper, right, obviously image, but there's something about the and so I'm also wondering, like, what is that connection with music, hearing, and drawing. There's something
Mhm.
I mean,
interesting there.
I feel like there's, with comics and like there's rhythm, there's kind of like like spacing, there's repetition, there's so many like parallel ideas that I feel like
Mhm.
support each other in a way that, yeah, that there has to be some type of overlapping neurological connection there, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and my experience absolutely echoes what you're saying about being with other people. If I go downstairs and I tell myself I'm practicing 15 minutes every day, it's like I slog through it. But like,
Mhm.
if I really like, I cannot. I mean, I experience euphoria in a room at the Old Town School of people I've never even spoken to, but yet I feel connected
Yes.
to because we've all played a couple of songs together. It's
Yeah.
amazing, and it reminds me of just the kind of community that we find around other cartoonists. There's something about a community or a feeling of kinship, I guess is what I mean, with someone who has tried to play music, and that's where I'm at, trying to play music. Yeah.
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 Anyway, we could talk like so much longer about this, but
Yes.
we should
Absolutely.
probably move
Fine
on.
Yeah.
wrap up. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks again for sharing everything you did with this, Georgia.
My
Now we're going to
pleasure.
move to our next section, which is what are you reading? So this is could be comics, books, or even like what media you're consuming. So,
Whoa.
Georgia, is there
Okay.
something that you'd like to share with us that you're currently consuming in some way?
Ooh, yes. I might need to just think for a second because I, yeah, I
Um,
have a different relationship to all kinds of stories, essentially. MK, did you want to add
yeah, I was
a
gonna
layer
say,
to
I was gonna
that?
pop in and
Yeah.
say, how about if I go first, and that gives you some time to think? Does
Sure.
that sound
Yeah.
okay? Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
So I actually I have So I've been reading two memoirs and two epistolary novels, right? So that sounds so fancy pants, but basically, if I'd forgotten this from my undergraduate English major days, but epistolary novel is basically a novel that's told in letters, right, or correspondences between people. And just by coincidence, I've read towards the end of this past year, two of the best books I've been unrelated to one another. One is called The Correspondent, and that was on a lot of people's end of year list, and it's basically about this woman who's like, and this is another thing, these two books share this interesting different character profile. A woman in their 70s, which is not someone you usually find as a protagonist in a book, right? She's about 70 something, she's divorced, and she's this retired attorney, and she just, her whole life has written letters, just like she'll write to her favorite author. So she's actually, and sometimes they write back, and they have this correspondence with Susan Sontag back, obviously, while Susan Sontag was alive. But
So
anyway,
these are like real letters she wrote.
the whole thing's fiction.
Oh, okay, okay, got
Yeah,
it, got it.
the whole
Okay.
thing's fiction. So it's but as these fictional letters come in and go out, you're there's a whole narrative unfolding of her looking of basically life review, her looking at her life, mistakes she's made, things she's done, and I'm making it sound boring, but it's actually really kind of exciting, and it's a wonderful book, and then related in terms of like the kind of demographic profile of the protagonist, and kind of some themes of toward later in life. A retired woman, probably also in her 70s, is a book called The Life Impossible, which came out in 2024, also fiction. And it's this retired math teacher who inherits out of nowhere a house in Ibiza from someone she vaguely knew at her first job, and who she'd said something to that changed that person's life. And there's a lot of magical realism in this, and which I love magical realism. But she has to go to Ibiza. She doesn't want this house. She was happy in her little retirement, in her math teacher ordered life. And so yeah, so it's just these two stories of like just wonderful discovery towards like in their 70s. And so they are both, and this is epistolary in that it's a letter she's writing to a student, a former student of hers, who's obviously having a really hard time. And she writes this story, and it ends up unfolding this whole mystery around what this magical realism in Ibiza. And it's very much environmental. There's a lot of environmental issues that come up in this book. Anyway, so I highly recommend those two if you want something. And then the two memoirs, really quick, are Actress of a Certain Age by Joel Hiller, who played this character Joel on Somebody Somewhere. And if you haven't watched Somebody Somewhere on HBO, it's just a comedy with its heart in a wonderful place. It's just tremendous. He won the Emmy last year for this, like out of no, like big surprise win for this character he played. So he's just hilarious. So I'm listening to him talk, read his memoir, and then the other one is Patti Smith's memoir, her most recent one. It's called Bread of Angels, and I'm a complete head over heels in love with Patti Smith, and she's such an amazing writer, such a talented artist in so many realms, like music, as a writer, as a poet, as a just a amazing human being. So highly recommend her latest memoir. So that's me.
Brilliant.
Great. You want me to go next, Georgia, or do you have one to share?
I'll go next just
Oh,
because mine
do you have a
is
dog to share
a
first?
bummer. Yes, I do. This is my bug.
Oh,
Oh,
hi, bud.
Hello, little buddy. He's such a sook.
hey,
He just came
Betty.
in as we were talking before, so I was like, might as well try and get him up on my lap because I was worried about him being heard earlier. You're always getting name dropped on the podcast.
He's
Oh, very
tolerating
good.
being on Zoom way better than my dog does.
He's so bored right now.
My dog, if he ever enters my office, he'll sit for like 2 minutes and then just wait by the door until someone
Mm,
gets leaves him out. So yeah, I don't mess with that
yeah.
anymore.
Okay, you want to get down, Book, so I can talk about stuff on the podcast? No, don't get my headphones, please. Oh no, oh no, here we go. Okay, so yeah, I do want to go next just because my book is a real challenge. I'm just going to give you one because I'm the type of reader who's like, I just read based on my fancy in any given moment. So I'm halfway through or a quarter of the way through like 8 different books right now. But the one I finished most recently, I can really speak to. It is called And Then She Fell. It's by Alicia Elliott. And it's a really hard book to read, I will say. This is why I wanted to not be the last person recommending a book. But it's a novel that is First person written about a indigenous woman who marries an affluent white guy and has a baby with him and moves to an upscale, like, I guess, very rich neighborhood in Toronto. And she's trying her best to become a writer and to basically write a sort of new or modern toned version of the creation story of her people. But she's also experiencing things uh in her own mind and then her body and then beyond that are frightening and that feel at odds with this new environment she's in, where she's surrounded by people who sort of subtly appear to not want her there, and just had a baby as well. It's got a lot of like really intense moments that feel absolutely justified, and it gets quite scary and quite dark. But just when I thought I couldn't read this book anymore, because the portrayal of what turns out to be an instance of mental illness, like mental illness being present, let's say, because it's not everything is attributed to it, but it's really hard because you're inside her experience going, I don't know what's real and what's not. Like, this is just, it's heart-wrenching, it's sad, it's terrifying. And it's also, a very important thing for us to form a different relationship to in our society, because even for me, saying the phrase mental illness, it doesn't feel right anymore. Not just from this book, but from, well, I won't get into it. But mental illness is not a phrase I tend to use happily. It feels old and broken to me right now. So this book really gave me like a very challenging, very close look at a whole life of experiences where mental illness, as we would call it, is like present and part of it. And then you get three-quarters of the way through the book and it just breaks open. And it is one of the most beautiful, life-changing experiences I have had in recent memory. And it reminded me why I'm telling the story I'm telling. Because I think this book would be classified as a horror book very easily. I think that's what it is. And also, just like rewrote my heart. Like I can't adequately say. I was so floored. It was so unexpected. Once I got to that turning point in the book, I did not stop reading till the end. But as I was reading up to that point, I kept having to stop more frequently because I was like, "Ooh, this is heavy. Oh, that was painful. Oh, I don't know if I want to go back into that world." And I'm so glad I did. So I really want to make sure that gets more readers, and just be prepared. It's a hard experience, but a very worthwhile one. And I found it really inspiring.
That's great. We'll share all this in our show notes as well, so people want to
Fantastic.
check out these books. For me, I got a lot when there was a great sale for on Fantagraphics website a few months ago. So I'm going through Eight Ball again, the complete the complete collection. I started reading, like, I think old reprints of Eight Ball when I was in college, and that kind of really opened my mind to alternative comics. And Dan Clowes's art style, the content, the stories are so you never know where they're going. They're like Lynchian. And what blew my mind now, though, just looking at like when these were published, is that they were like in like the 80s, and it was just like such a long, like late 80s, 90s into like 2004. So it's just funny to think like, and he was in Chicago when I was like, growing up. It's odd to think that he was making these in real time when I was like a fifth grader buying like superhero comics. And if I just like walked a couple aisles over in the store, I would have found Eight Ball. But yeah, it was so anyway, reading Eight Ball, in as a college student was very formative for me. So it's really fun kind of going through like the issues that I'd never seen before and recontextualizing kind of some of these stories that go from issue to issue. So that's been really cool to read through. And then I have to say this because I didn't, by saying media I'm consuming, then I had to think, I realized there's another thing that I've been consuming a lot of with my son, and that's watching old MacGyver reruns.
Wow.
And it's been great. It's our TV has, like the Samsung TV has some weird internet-based, like, I don't know what they call it. There's some like pre-made channels where you can watch like an entire show just 24/7. So there's a MacGyver channel that we accidentally was on the TV once, and my son was riveted, and he was like asking what MacGyver was, and I was like, oh, he's like a guy that like makes things that can explode sometimes, and he uses science. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I remember being told when I was a kid watching it is that like everything was real, but they would change one thing about it so you couldn't actually build a bomb
Mm.
in real life. And so when I told that to my son, he was like intrigued. So we've literally been going through like every episode of MacGyver, and they are so silly, but it's a really fun thing to watch with like an 8-year-old because it's like v- violent enough where he's intrigued by it, but it's like actually no one ever gets hurt, and MacGyver has sworn off guns in a very like like based on like a childhood trauma. So it's a good message in general. So much so that I bought my son a Swiss Army knife for his birthday. But the one I got him, it literally just has like a little like box opener that you can't really hurt yourself with, and there's not really any knife in it, but he loves it to open boxes. So anyway,
That's
consuming a lot of
amazing.
MacGyver these days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got to show him. Have you shown him a MacGruber?
I haven't yet. I feel like he may not understand the parody of it yet.
Okay, yeah, yeah, he'll get there, but yeah,
He'll get there. I mean, MacGruber. What blows my mind is that some people watch MacGruber without knowing what MacGyver is. That's even
right.
weirder. I'm like, that. How does that show make any sense without the the source? But yeah, that MacGyver is so silly too, and it's a very much a thing of the '80s where he's like this weird CIA operative going to like Latin American countries and doing highly illegal things. But in the '80s, like, yeah, that's what this hero does.
Yeah.
It's very funny that that's kind of what the story is. But then I think as the seasons go on, then it's like he stops working for the US government, and it's kind of a vague organization. Because I think as we got into the '90s, it was like, oh yeah, overthrowing Latin American. Well, I guess it's in favor again now, but like there was
I
a
was gonna
time where
say
we it
that's
was frowned upon.
that's what our current fascist dictator is doing.
Yeah, maybe
So
we're
it's
due for a
not the
MacGyver reboot.
oh my God. Oh my God. I don't even want to imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Anyway,
Yeah.
um, sorry,
Actually,
not to make this too political.
I mean that is very joyful, and I'm yeah, I to sort of lift us up out of the reality shit we just went into there for a moment. I would love to mention the thing that I watched recently in one night and just cried my freaking eyes out about. Heated Rivalry.
Oh my God,
Like
everyone's watching this show.
if people because everyone simply must. It's gorgeous. It's like I mean obviously I have some Canadian feelings about it because it's all hockey, but also as a person who came to my queerness like just all out. I dated men for the first like 25 years of my life. I'm fucking gay. Like I needed to see more examples of tender and beautiful and different situations where people of the same gender or just like divergent genders from the binary business get together, and it's not like a token, like it's a beautiful story that's rich and has layers. And this show, like I'm not a man and I don't date men, but that sex was the best sex ever. I just, yeah, I know everyone's watching it, but I also want to make sure that if anyone out there hasn't yet, that they do.
We'll include in the show notes.
Yep.
Yes. So beautiful.
That's great. All right. Well, that was a great note to end things on.
So
Georgia,
much
thank you so much for
queerness.
joining us. This was such a great discussion, and we look forward to future episodes of the podcast, and we'll have links, here as well.
Fantastic.
And
Thank
yeah,
you.
thanks again for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.